With the introduction of live arena seasons, I think a lot of people, including myself, are going to want to get back into live arena. But how do we get better at live arena? Let's ask this guy.
What's up?
Shoot him, Kevin.
Hello, everybody. I'm Roadblock, and this is a Raid Shadow Legends video. We are not alone today. We are joined by BigPoppaDrock. How you doing today, Drock?
Oh, dude, I'm doing great, Roadblock. I just woke up 30 minutes ago, and, you know, that's the best way to start your day is with a little raid action. And
Yes.
super stoked to be on the channel, man. So thank you so much for having me on.
So happy to have you back. You were actually, I don't know if you remember, you were my first ever collab on this channel. And
I do. Yeah.
I think things are a little bit smoother these days than they were back then. A little bit of jank back then when we started. But I wore a special shirt for you because I know that you are a Dragon Ball Z fan. I just wanted to ask you, though, do you watch any other anime, like, or do you just kind of stick with like the mainstream stuff?
Oh, dude, I watch way too much anime, which is so funny because, you know, I always enjoyed anime as a kid, like, you know, Dragon Ball Z, Gundam Wing, that kind of stuff. Maybe a little Sailor Moon for those of us who watch Toonami here in America way back when. I'm an old bro. But yeah, during the pandemic, got super into it and started watching a ton of anime. And so, funny enough, I was watching anime last night. I was watching Black Clover. I just started that, which is decent. And then probably my current favorite anime right now is Solo Leveling, which if you haven't watched Solo Leveling, that show freaking rocks. So check it out. Solo Leveling, so good. I love that show. That's my current favorite now.
I would check that one out. Do you like Demon Slayer at all?
Love Demon Slayer. Love Demon Slayer. Absolutely.
Yes. All right, that's my favorite. That's kind of taken the reins for me as my favorite anime. But I am looking for some new ones, so I would check out Solo Leveling for sure. Stop right there. Click the link in the description right now to get a free legendary Elenaril and 3 free amazing epics as you level up. Here are the exact steps that you need to follow. Step 1, log out of Plarium Play on PC and uninstall. Step 2, click the link in the description and register with a brand new email. Step 3, launch raid and complete the tutorial. Step 4, go to your inbox and claim your first champ. Here we go. You'll find Elenaril here, as well as Uugo at level 10, Tagoar at level 20, and Rector Drath at 30. Don't forget to use the promo code Supreme6 to get yourself the awesome Supreme Galek. And if you play for 7 days, you'll get a 3rd legendary Alice. This is an amazing account start in Raid. So click on my link right now and follow the steps. I had one other thing I wanted to say, and I don't want to get too into the weeds here because I do want to talk about the stuff in the video, but I had kind of this realization today. I waited until all episodes of Invincible were out before I binged it, right?
And another great show.
Yeah, that just happened, right? So I started watching that today before we were recording. I had this realization because you mentioned Toonami, thinking back to Toonami where it was like, you know, on a Wednesday, Goku went Super Saiyan for the first time, and they're like, next time on Dragon Ball Z, he's gonna fight Frieza. And then you come home from school, you're so excited, you sit down, you turn on Dragon Ball Z, and he's fighting Raditz, and you have to watch the whole season through again. we are so spoiled in 2025 where I can just not watch a show and then binge every episode and not have to live that stuff these days. But
dude, that brings back the memories, man. That happens so many times too. You get to a great point in the Namek series, you know what I mean? And they would just start all over again because they hadn't gotten the episodes done yet, and you're just like, oh my god, no.
That was our childhood. For those of you that didn't you know, aren't as old as Drock and I, that's how we had to grow up, you know. So streaming services are amazing for people from the grew up in the 90s and the 2000s. So without any further ado, let's kind of jump into it. So I actually have both of my accounts up here. I don't do live arena. I've only ever hit silver on live arena on both accounts. In fact, my free-to-play challenge account hit silver 3 before either of these accounts did. So, but what I wanted to kind of start with seasons becoming a thing, I think a lot of people, including myself, I want to start doing live arena now. I kind of got a taste for it from the free-to-play challenge account. And obviously every account is going to be different. What kind of strategies do you think are going to be good for people just getting into live arena? Maybe not top 100 type stuff, but just, getting into it.
Yeah, and you make a really good point there. Like, everything's going to be different based on your account. So you got to start with an honest assessment of what your account is. Are you a spender? Are you free to play? Are you somewhere in between? How long have you had the account? I think is a big thing that determines what level of gear you have and whether or not you've gotten lucky and you're able to build a go first team, right? Or maybe you just don't have the speed. You can't win the speed race. And so you have to try to go second. The biggest thing that I would tell people that are new to live arena, that have been intimidated by it, or more frankly, that have been frustrated by it, because I think it can be a frustrating thing when you're getting clapped constantly, is first and foremost, if you're a low spender, if you're free to play, don't stress. Just don't stress. Like, you're going to lose a lot of fights in live arena. I have a free to play account. I win at maybe a 50% rate. The first thing you want to do when you're trying to get into live arena, if you're really serious about climbing, you're saying, okay, I want to really push this. I want to get my Quintus, or I want to get to, that level, or go beyond, or maybe I want to try to get on the leaderboard. You probably spend if you're trying to do that, just to be realistic. But the number one thing you need to do is just sit down, look at your roster, and think about team construction. Okay, like what can I do? What kind of team can I build? There are certain champions that everybody knows are better for arena versus champions that are better for PvE. So look through your roster and try to pick out the champions that are better for arena. Hopefully you've gotten at least 1 or 2. You don't have to have 10, 20, or even 30. If you have 2 or even 3, that can be enough to start making a climb.
Okay. All right. Wow. Really well said. That was like so much great information there. How much value do you think that new players should put on blessings? So for example, on my main account here, I have Elenaril. He just got reworked.
Great.
I'm kind of interested in using him, but I don't have a blessing on him versus other champions where, like I've got 6-star Harima and stuff. So should I, obviously it's different depending on what the opponent drafts, but do you think that players should try to prioritize building and using champions that have blessings more?
Tough to say. I would say, like, look, Elenaril just got a great buff, right? And he's definitely way more viable now than he was before. So he's someone you could absolutely use. I would look more towards the perspective of what is the better team comp, less about who has the most blessings, more about who's going to make you harder to defeat. So in this instance, looking at your account right now, you've got some really good champions for arena. There's a lot, actually. I'm looking through here and there's some really, really great champions here that you could use to do some stuff. The biggest question I would have looking at your account is, do you win speed races? That'd be the first question I ask. Are you someone who's going to win a speed race, or are you typically going to lose? And then I'm riding that Harima to glory. You know what I mean? A 6-star blessed Harima that can potentially keep your team alive longer, that is the staple of go second teams, especially when you are a lower level player. You know what I mean? In the high level, you don't see Harima anymore, which is crazy. It's crazy to think that she was the S tier meta champion at the high level for over a year and a half or so. And now you barely see her because mythicals dominate at the high end more than anything else. So it really is relative to where you're at. But if you're not winning speed races, I mean, look, a 6-star blessed Harima, yes, the blessing is important and that's great. And that makes her a lot stronger. But I'm really more interested in her, right? You're going to go off of my opinion, kits first, champion abilities first. Also, who you can gear the strongest first. That's really important. Gear is more important the vast majority of time than having the absolute best champion. I know that can be shocking for people to hear, like whoa. Some of these champions are broken. And yeah, some of them are, especially at the high end if you have a Galek here, things like that. But if you have God tier gear, you can overcome a champion deficit. So for your account, I'm looking at, really for any account, I'm looking at what champions do I have and what do they do first, and then I would think about blessings afterwards.
Strategy does matter. That who you have built best matters, but kind of along with what you were saying here, I think Commodus is pretty good in the meta, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah, Commodus is fantastic. You know what I mean? Commodus, ideally you're going first with Commodus to really maximize value, because if you're not, then people can get up, block debuffs or whatever. They can get up a lot of different stuff to counter him, and especially because protection set, you see a lot of where people are throwing up things that you can't strip buffs with his first form. But yeah, Commodus is an S tier champion for sure right now.
I have struggled to really get the value that I would like out of him, but the team that I've been running the most, and this kind of segues into my next question, I actually run an all beast team with Bolent Freewalker, which is difficult to do in live arena, right? Yeah. He is my fastest champion on the account, even faster than Arbiter, but only 368. Again, different level accounts, guys, you know, right? Like, Drock's been playing this game for a lot longer than I have, and probably spent just a little bit more money, right?
I mean, just a small amount of difference, you know what I mean? Like, you know, maybe 2x the same. We're basically the same player.
So, but I love this guy, and I think a lot of people sleep on him, and so I basically draft, I actually pick Armand's first. He always is what they ban. So he's like a kind of a bait for ban. And then I pick Nishak, Bolent, Mezamel, I'm just forgetting his name, and Basher.
Okay, sure.
And so that's been working for me. But do you think that that's a flawed approach? And be honest with me, right? Because I'm doing that because it's fun, but I could probably honestly have more success utilizing my really good Harima or other champions. Do you think that it's a mistake to maybe focus too much on some of the faction unity champs?
I think for live arena, faction unity is really tough to pull off. Yeah. They're definitely better for classic arena. There are exceptions with some of the faction unity champs that get really good abilities at like the first level, where if you use one champion on them, they start to become really good. Great example, this is Volcanos. Volcanos only needs one Demon Spawn champion to be really, really good in live arena. And so for me, he's almost always a ban because I typically try to go first, especially at the high end. Going second is really hard to do unless you have certain champions or you get really lucky. With RNG, it's not that it's a bad thing. I think it's just you're setting yourself up where, especially at 368 speed, right? You're gonna lose most speed races, in my opinion, especially as you start climbing up.
At your level, right? Yes.
Yeah. Well, even at your level, as you start getting higher up, like you're gonna win some now for sure. Like, you know what I mean? But as you start getting further up in live arena, that's gonna be harder and harder and harder and harder. Okay. And so you're gonna have to have different strategies to account for that. Just raw gear is the most important determining factor than what champions you have, what mythicals you have really, and then, you know, what strategy you use comes after that. But I think at the lower level, you have a little more counterplay, a little more ability with your champion set to put out some really unique, interesting strategies. Like, you've got a Harima, you've got a Mithrala. If you're lucky enough to have some reaction gear, and I think you've played this account for a while, you could hypothetically build some of these champions in reaction, you know, and try to counter people that way, where like, yeah, you may be going second, but you're not taking damage.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to get Stone Skin on my Harima as well. At least one.
You don't even need it. Let me see her stats. Do you have reaction pieces available for her or not? Yeah, so like those aren't bad stats whatsoever for your level.
Just rings, unfortunately.
Just rings. So okay, so this is where it gets a little tougher, right? Like this is hard unless you have some equipped. Maybe you might have some equipped.
Let's take a look.
On other champions.
Nope.
So this is a great learning experience here, right? So you don't have the luxury of being able to build a triple reaction Harima. And the difference between having one piece of reaction versus having three is monstrously huge. So, for example, my Harima isn't even built in Stone Skin. She's just solely built in reaction. Because if I'm using her, I know that I'm probably going up against someone like a Marius or a Gizmac. That Stone Skin's not going to do anything. It's just going to get stripped. It's going to get knocked off. What's better for me at that level is to have reactions so she takes less damage, stays alive, and her passive essentially keeps everybody else alive. But I can do that strategy because I have reaction gear.
Yeah.
Even if it's, and this is the other thing, just so you guys know, I know that they're messing around now with whether or not they put reaction gear in clan versus clan, and it's also really tough because you have to win the clan versus clan to get good reaction gear. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's not. On my free to play, we lose almost every clan versus clan, and that's okay. I'm totally fine with that. But always keep your reaction gear, even if it's bad. Just want to stress that if you get a reaction gear piece that is bad, that's like resistance, and let's say it re-rolls to like resistance with no speed, it doesn't matter. Because sometimes having lower stats is okay when you're building arena teams, because you'd rather have the utility of what it does. So if you had a banner for this Harima that was resistance, yeah, it may reduce your damage, but it also might be the key that lets you build a really strong go second team, and you can flex Harima to be way more of like, I'm going to make Harima less of a damage dealer. I'm going to make her way more of a just survive stuff. And I'll never forget, there was a player I faced years ago who, would build his Arima in like a giant bolster set. And I just could not get through his shield. And, you're not necessarily going to find all these Narcissus accounts at the lower level, nor are people going to necessarily pick him all the time either. So I think that's the other big thing when it comes to building champions too, is just think about what's going to surprise your enemy the most. What are they going to come into a battle and expect one thing and get something completely different? At the low level, you're not going to be facing the same guy over and over and over again, right? You're going to be facing different people constantly. So the chances of them, making a spreadsheet of your roster is very low. Shout out to Biohack. I love talking about Biohack spreadsheets. So that's an advantage, right? Because you can come into a fight and expect one thing and get something completely different. And that's really important to giving yourself the best chance to win it.
Well, that's what I'm excited to do. So I just swapped over to my free-to-play account here. And you can see, obviously.
You have a NAIS?
Yes.
Jesus,
yes.
Wow.
We've talked about this in your chat a few times.
I forgot that you had a NAIS.
I've got him. I've got.
Yes, that's right. This is the God tier free to play account. I
just pulled him a couple of days ago.
Hilarious.
I don't have Ancora though. And then we got Teox as well. Don't look at the build. I don't want to put Teox on the screen. I'm ashamed of him. He's built really, really bad. So,
hey, who cares? NAIS is enough to carry an account like this, basically, to almost gold. If he doesn't get banned, this champion is the most difficult to deal with, in my opinion, in the entire game. Yeah.
These are the stats that I've got on my NAIS right now, and
Are you struggling with him or what?
He steals wins. He does.
Yeah,
but
I was just saying he should.
I feel like everyone puts him on. Maybe I'm, feeding off of too much of what I hear about him. Everyone puts him on this pedestal of being this god tier, impossible to kill thing. And like one of my biggest frustrations is that when he dies in his first form, transforms and then dies. What am I doing wrong? Is that on me thing or?
Yeah. No, I mean, it just means you got multi-hit or you took additional damage past his first form, which frankly, thank God, because if he didn't do that, he would truly be basically unstoppable.
Yeah.
It's funny because it seems like it's coded incorrectly and they just never fixed it. But at the high end, this dude is literally close to impossible to kill most of the time. So the number one thing when it comes to building a champion like NAIS is just ignore attack. Ignore attack. You don't care. Who cares? Attack doesn't matter. Everything should be HP percentage. Everything, the highest possible HP you can get. Everything HP percentage. And of course damage. But start with that. Of course, you want some speed on him. You'd love to be able to get him into Stone Skin, which would make the biggest difference for whether or not you're getting W's here. Is switching out him into a lethal and Stone Skin build. If you can get that, it's going to be a major, major difference maker. So this is a great example, right? You have an attack thing, you could re-roll that, but you should be putting him into a Stone Skin and lethal or Stone Skin and Savage build without question, because the most important thing is keeping him alive, right? Like you need to keep him alive. So if you're not keeping him alive, he's not going to do much, for you.
So I should transform him on my own and not only rely on the passive.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay. I didn't know. I mean, some people told me different in chat. So,
The first form is great if you can get a pick and get a block revive, right?
Like if there's a Wukong.
If you can pull one off. Yeah, if there's a Wukong, for sure. Keep him in the first form, block revive for the Wukong. That second form is what makes him so terrifying. And if you've built him correctly, and especially if your other teammates have started dying or if you've managed to kill someone on their team, the dude just becomes a literal unstoppable tank where it doesn't matter what you do, he will annihilate you. I mean, what is it? 15% of every stat per person dead or something crazy in that second form? Is that what it is?
Increases champions.
Stacks up to 100%. So this guy literally can get up to 100% increase in his everything. And then just goes on a revive rampaging speed. So or spree. So don't be afraid to switch him out of that first form. Don't let people dictate it for you where he just goes down and you can't get him back, because the big thing about him is you're putting up block damage, you're putting up counter attack. He's just going to go in there and start wrecking.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, you mentioned protection gear, and I've heard that being mentioned on your live streams and through a couple of other content creators that do live arena that I watch. Is that I didn't think that was really a big part of the meta. Is that a new kind of development, or No,
it's been around for a bit.
Okay.
I mean, you see it on specific champions, like you'll see it on Seifi.
Yeah.
You see it on Necrit. You'll see it on a couple of different champions like that, where they're throwing out buffs or people that buff at the start of a battle. Or if you can win a speed race and get your buffs up. Yeah, protection, very viable, very viable. You get good speed out of it. But most importantly, you prevent getting stripped. And, you know, the number one arena champ nowadays, in my opinion, is honestly probably Marius.
Yeah.
You know, everybody can get him. That's, if you want to really improve your account, start grinding towards Marius. He is such a hard counter for all the mythicals that you run into at the high level, for sure, even at the low level. And again, he is the ultimate buff, decreaser. And I say decreaser instead of stripper because he's not getting polymorph off that ability. So yeah, it's great that he's free to play, technically. You know what I mean? That everyone has a path to get him. You don't have to pull him from Richard. Such a massive W because he is such an incredibly strong champion.
Thank you so much for the advice. But personally, now that I know how to build my NAIS, but also for my audience as well, if you guys aren't already familiar with Drath, and how are you not? You got to be living under a rock. His content is amazing. I'm a huge fan of Drath. So go check him out. I'll have the link to the channel in the description. And I just want to say thanks again for coming on. Do you have any last message that you want to give to the audience here?
Nah, man. I mean, thanks so much for having me. I genuinely hope that this is helpful. I know one of the things when it comes to being a lower level account is that it's really easy to get frustrated with Arena. And it's also easy to be like, oh, here's a guy who has every champion telling me what to do, blah, blah, blah. Just keep in mind, I've got a free to play account too. I played it for over a year now. I understand intimately how hard and how frustrating and how challenging Arena can be for accounts like that. Take the wins out of beating someone on strategy. That's the excitement. I look at free to play. I don't stress if I lose, and I just say if I out strategize somebody, that's a win. Even if I end up losing, where someone ended up having better gear, better champions, but I had a really good strategy that gave me a really good shot on a battle I should never have had a chance in, that's the win. And also just remember, like, especially if you haven't spent money in the game and somebody else has, if you end up getting that win, they're gonna be so triggered, they're gonna be so angry, you know, and savor those victories, though they may be few and far between. And just remember, look at your wife, look at your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, and just know that they're going to really enjoy the fact that you're spending money on them and not on Raid Shadow Legends.
Well, that is awesome advice, for real. So thanks again for coming on. Guys, I just want to say thank you so much for watching today. If you're new here, if you haven't seen my content before, please consider subscribing. I am making a push to 5,000 subscribers. We're just about halfway there. We're at like 4,500. So, please consider subscribing and like the video as well if you would be so kind. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Take care.